You're listening to the Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glenn Sarvati.
Welcome to another edition of the Big Cast. My name is Glenn Sarvati on behalf of the Best Innovation Group, where we like to do cool things with financial technology. Today we're going to be speaking with Jake Tyler, who is the head of AI for the company Glia, who we've spoken with before. He is going to be talking with us about responsible AI and how that can be most effectively implemented in a financial institution setting, which they have quite a bit of experience in. Before we get to that, I'll just mention, as always, that you can check out more about the Best Innovation Group at our website, big-fintech.com. And since we are talking about AI, I think I might draw your attention specifically to our Best Innovation Group's AI development offerings. You can click under products and services. We have a whole tab that explains what we've got going on in that area. Check that out when you get a chance. Another thing I'm just going to cover very briefly, we've talked before about the interchange legislation that is taking place now at the state level. The Illinois interchange law got a lot of attention over the course of the last month, and it seems to be spreading pretty quickly. There's now similar initiatives going on in Pennsylvania. And another really interesting one in Florida, which is in kind of a different direction, in that the initial resolution or piece of the budget provision that came out of the state legislature for the governor's signature really just dealt with a study around interchange, which frankly is nothing that new. The Georgia legislature took that same approach this year. But an interesting step by Governor Ron DeSantis down in Florida. He actually struck that as a line item veto, which created a lot of other turmoil because in the process it was part and parcel of some other important funding and studies that needed to be done. And going back and revisiting that kind of created a little bit more chaos. The thing that I find so interesting is suddenly payments is becoming partisan. I don't know how it's happening that way. I mean, it's one thing when you're talking about merchant codes and guns and things like that, but it seems like the Republicans and Democrats in red and blue states and at the federal level are increasingly kind of lining up on their own little sides of the aisle, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, to be perfectly honest. I'm covering this in a blog, and if you go out to the website, you can find that as well under the Media tab, where you'll also find past episodes of the Big Cast. Let me jump in as well. The Finovate conference, Finovate Spring, took place a couple of weeks ago out in San Francisco. I did not get a chance to attend this one, but I'm always following along closely. And I wanted to share a couple of thoughts. The best of show that was announced, the top 6 audience elected winners out of, that's roughly the top 10% or so of the companies that presented. Some interesting kind of trends and, developments that I saw from looking at those 6 companies. I kind of geek out on this stuff. A warning on that one. I'm almost thinking of it in terms of, some of the analyses you'll find at Baseball Reference, or even in the old days, the Grateful Dead database, where they used to analyze the frequency of different songs that were played on their concert tours and whatnot. But anyway, a couple of things that I saw. 4 of the 6 winners were first-time presenters at Finovate, which to me is kind of an interesting statement, given that people are talking about a little bit of a fintech winter and funding and whatnot. There are still some pretty darn cool new ideas coming out, as you can see, from people who are coming on stage for the first time and actually rising to the top of the barrel that way. Less surprisingly, 4 of the 6 winners had an AI component to their presentation. Obviously, the hot topic, we've always got something that kind of rides to the top of the imagination. And clearly that's the head of the class right now as far as that goes. But anyway, in alphabetical order, these were the 6 winners, just very briefly. And we're going to post the link to the show in our show notes, which you can always find at the website or wherever you're listening to the podcast. If you click through, you should find that easily at Apple Music, Spotify, etc. But you can track down. They have now posted for anybody. You don't need to have a login or anything to see the 7-minute videos that each of these companies did. All of them are out there too, but I'm going to point you directly to these 6 that I thought would be of particular interest, given that that's what the audience said. Bloom Credit, I'm going to do these in alphabetical order. Bloom Credit is a solution that is looking at recurring payment transactions and providing a feed into financial institutions so that they can be used to inform credit scoring decisions, kind of an alternative payments play, giving people credit for things that don't necessarily run through the typical rails. Interesting idea. They actually market that under Bloom Plus is the name of the product. Cascading AI, there we go, the first AI entry here. Small and medium-sized business loan origination. Another theme that I saw kind of emerging here is there is a lot of lending solutions. People are very interested in getting more lending volume these days, as well as B2B, a lot of B2B plays. Cobalt Labs with a K, Cobalt with a K was the next of the alphabetical order winners. Again, an AI play, applying artificial intelligence to really executing on third-party provider due diligence. So kind of a reg tech thing, and that I'd like to learn more about them because that one sounds very intriguing. QuickFi was the next one. They were not a first-time presenter. In fact, this was their third time that they have won a Best of Show award at Finovate, so they've got some good traction. Embedded finance, also B2B. What they're working on is making it easier for secured B2B equipment financing. The one that caught my eye the most, that I was the most interested in, I recognized the name right off the bat. First-time presenter, a company called Remynt, R-E-M-Y-N-T. Then I recognized when I saw the video when she got on stage, Gwyneth Borden is the founder. This is the earliest stage company up there as well. And lo and behold, I realized that we actually interviewed Gwyneth back in late 2022 when she was part of an incubator program at Money 2020. And I'm going to post a link to that one if you want to go back and hear what she had to say then. And Gwyneth and I have traded notes since then after I noticed that she had won Best of Show. And she mentioned a lot of interesting things happening there. You know, as she pointed out, when we first spoke, they didn't even have a full completed product for Remynt. And as a lot of entrepreneurs do discover, particularly in the financial services space, there's a lot of complexity to it. The banking as a service, they are actually, because they are working through a solution that involves lending. And debt reduction is really what they're looking for. It's an ethical way of actually turning debt reduction into a positive, as opposed to any kind of a penalty thing for people who have fallen into delinquency. So they're working with bank partners, which obviously created a whole new level of diligence. They're also in the process of closing a funding round and going live in July. So we're going to be checking in with Remynt again very soon. Very exciting stuff going on there, and can't wait to hear in more detail about what they've got going on there. And then finally, another individual that we've spoken to in the past, Savvy AI. They've also now, this is their second Best of Show award at Finovate. A woman by the name of Maya Mihalik, who is the co-founder and an alumni of Synchrony Financial. She was somebody we spoke to again, I believe it was at Money 2020, roughly in that same time frame, and it was just before she had left to start Savvy AI, I believe. She was still representing Synchrony, as I recall, when we spoke to her. As you see in the name, Savvy AI, their play is the notion that the JP Morgans and the really big players of the world are spending literally $1 billion budget. They have 900 data scientists on staff, is what she quoted, trying to bring some of those same capabilities around AI to smaller financial institutions without the need to hire all the data scientists. Very interesting play, obviously catching people's attention. As I said, we'll post a link to the Finovate website where these demos are available. You can check these out and others. And I can't wait to see the next wave of these companies. Maybe some of these same ones will be on stage again. Who knows? In New York for the Finovate Fall Conference, which is the week after Labor Day. I believe it's September 9th through 11th, if I'm not mistaken. Probably a good lead in here to speak now with Jake Tyler from Glia. Glia is proudly mentions that I believe they say that they may be the all-time record holder in terms of the number of Best in Show awards at Finovate. I count 6 for Glia. It kind of reminds me of the Saturday Night Live 5-Timers Club. I think we probably have a couple people who have hosted more than 5 times at this point. And I guess Glia can probably even add a couple to that tally now because Jake Tyler, as you'll hear, actually is somebody, again, we've spoken to in the past. He was the co-founder of a company called FinAI. And before they joined forces with Glia, they'd been on stage under their own banner at Finovate and actually had won 2 awards of their own. So arguably, you can add those to the mix in terms of the number of times. We've been talking a lot these days about artificial intelligence and the issues around data privacy, ethically and responsibly providing it, particularly in a financial institution setting. I think Jake's got some great stuff to say about that. So let's have a listen. I'm here with Jake Tyler, the AI market lead for Glia, and head of the AI side. And we have a conversation I think will be very interesting with regard to responsible AI. Didn't take artificial intelligence; it just took an email inbox. Jake, you were the one that tracked down. I knew your background at FinAI, and you pointed out that we first spoke, I guess it was probably at a Finovate event back in 2017.
That's right. Yeah, I've been working on AI for banks and credit unions now for over a decade. And yeah, we spoke, I think the last time chatbots were cool, which was around 2017. And they weren't quite as capable, but we were seeing a boom in demand, and it was a big change in the capabilities of what we could do with conversational AI, and lots of interest. So I think that was the last sort of wave, and now we're back here and talking about it again. And the good news
With a
is,
lot more public interest, not just people in the inside of the industry.
that's right, and I think a lot more capable technology.
Yeah, and again, from a history lesson standpoint, if I'm not mistaken, Glia started up in 2012. You were the co-founder of FinAI in 2014, and your companies joined forces about 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, that's right. And we became part of Glia really because what we were seeing was that it's so important to have AI working alongside humans for the right experience. And so bringing those two together just made a ton of sense for us. We were doing that through partnerships. And then with Glia a couple of years ago, we put all of our eggs in the same bag. So we decided that we wanted to be part of one platform and bring AI and human interactions together.
It occurs to me that the last time we would have spoken about this, generative AI, we just talked about AI, not Gen AI. Do you think how do you draw the distinction between the two? Do you think of Gen AI as just kind of the logical progression, or do you still think of the two as kind of separate and apart?
I mean, I think what we've seen with large language models and generative AI in the last couple of years has been, for me at least, an advancement that I was not expecting. Like the capabilities are, I think, sort of amazing, and I'm sure we all had that moment when we started using ChatGPT. And so I think the ability to have a very, very natural sounding conversation with a machine exists today. There's lots of challenges with doing that for a financial institution or a doctor or something like that, but the technology has gotten a lot better. So from a generative AI perspective, I think the technology has advanced a lot since our last conversation. Fundamentally, still sort of the same stuff happening underneath the hood.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And based on some of the stuff I've been reading that Glia's kind of put out on the space, it sounds like we're kind of in agreement that headline risk is probably the biggest concern, especially with an industry that's so based on trust. Would you tend to agree financial services are kind of leading the pack as far as kind of a higher standard of care that's necessary? You mentioned doctors. I'm thinking healthcare, financial services probably are the ones that you're probably the most concerned about going rogue, as it were.
I mean, if I was building any AI chatbot, I would be concerned about it going rogue. And we had there are some both sort of amusing and less amusing examples of AI chatbots going rogue. One is an example from Air Canada's. They had a chatbot that was offering people refunds when it shouldn't have been.
Oh, boy.
And a court found that they were liable for that. Unsurprisingly, as a business is responsible for what is said on its website and what its chatbot says. And so if it says something weird and wacky or offers a refund when it shouldn't, the business is responsible. For financial institutions, the whole business is built on trust fundamentally. That's why you go down Main Street, you see this big imposing building, and it's a bank branch because that's somewhere safe where we can keep our money. And I think with AI and generative AI in particular, and for where it's at right now, we want to be really careful that we're not eroding the trust that customers put in us.
Now, the way I've thought about that, and I've been kind of sharing this with clients for some time now, that at this stage of the game, as helpful as Gen AI is in terms of basically serving as an assistant to help people do their jobs, I've been counseling that you should not actually expose the direct output of any generative AI directly to the outside world without it having been reviewed by somebody to at least vet it from a human perspective. Is that kind of where your head is at as well, or do you think we're getting beyond that stage yet?
Oh, I think 100% that's where we're at today. So we've built our system to make sure that a human has reviewed every response that is sent from the AI to a customer. We think that approach is definitely needed for any use case, any sort of critical use case where you need to have high confidence in the answers that you're sending back. That doesn't mean that we can't use generative AI and large language models to make these systems a lot better and a lot more efficient. But yeah, I think we need to make sure that we have a trusted answer, is what we sort of calling it internally, our trusted answer posture. So we make sure that there's a trusted answer is always being sent back to the customer.
I guess that's one of the challenges with this topic is, we can always isolate on the, single digit percentage of responses that just really don't ring true. But the bottom line is there's an awful lot of very constructive, beneficial, cost saving, time saving, benefits that come out of it. And it's just a matter of making sure that we can put the guardrails in place to keep those exceptions from, totally kind of sinking the ship. And it sounds like that's basically what you're talking about as you think about responsible AI. And my understanding is Glee has kind of put this all together under the banner of Cortex. Can you say a bit about that?
Yeah, Cortex is our sort of our new AI layer that we've launched at Glia, and it includes our customer AI. So that's our Glia virtual assistant, or our customer or member-facing AI assistant or chatbot that lives either in digital channels or phone channels and is there to provide convenient, always-on self-service. And so we've been doing that now for a decade or so. So this is a very widely adopted. We have 130 plus customers using our Glia virtual assistants today for that use case. That does a great job at scale and widely used. So customer AI is part of it. The newer areas for us and where we think generative AI can absolutely be used today is in agent-facing use cases. So helping customer service agents using Glia to help streamline their workflows and automate some of their tasks. And for managers, so helping managers draw out insights from their data faster and access that by just asking instead of having to navigate sort of complex BI tools. And so I'll give you an example on the agent side as like things that we can use generative AI for. One example is that we're using it for transfer summaries. So whenever we transfer from an AI assistant to an agent or from one agent to another agent in another team, for example, we can summarize the whole conversation into a nice pithy, couple of lines so that the agent picking up the transfer can, just read that summary and pick it up and it's nice and warm.
That's a great example. I mean, I'm just thinking, as a customer, I think we could all sympathize with that frustration of, the handoff that's like, okay, now I got to explain everything all over again. So
exactly, that's happened to everyone, and it is incredibly annoying and frustrating. And so, that's a great way to use generative AI because it can do a really good task at summarizing. Another way we're using it is at the end of every call or at the end of every chat interaction, an agent will typically do a wrap survey. So they'll say, what was the topic we talked about? Was the customer happy? That sort of stuff. And doing those wrap surveys takes on average about 1 to 2 minutes. And so now we launched a feature as part of Cortex that automatically completes those wrap surveys for agents. And so that can save 1 to 2 minutes per call.
Is that based on the actual, the voice recognition and the actual words that were spoken, or the tone of the voice, all of the above?
Yeah, it's based on the transcript of the conversation. So
Okay.
the AI will listen to the conversation and then complete the wrap-up survey. And you can add any question you want to the wrap-up survey. And that's the benefit of generative AI, the technology. It's very, very flexible, but a great use. And one of the reasons why it's a great use is that it doesn't have to be right 100% of the time. If it's wrong occasionally, it has to be right, the vast majority of the time. But if it's wrong occasionally, it's not that big of a deal.
Those are low stakes situations. That's not going to change the amount of money someone's transferring between accounts or something like that.
Still real business value, really easy to adopt and use. very, very very streamlined workflow from an agent perspective. They don't have to, go to a new pane or open anything. So when we say responsible AI, I think it's a matter of being safe and secure, and using large language models and generative AI in a way that's that is safe, that keeps your data private, all that sort of stuff, but also that delivers real value, actually works, and isn't just a novelty, and uh, and um, and is baked seamlessly into the workflow as well. So it's not, really complex for me to adopt it and use it.
So, I mean, with that, just thinking about the definition of responsible AI, I remember seeing something in some of your materials. You kind of have three kind of key components. You think they have to it has to meet those criteria. Can you kind of go over
Yeah, so that they were the three that I mentioned. So safe, safe, secure, trusted. So, in banking for sure, we need to make sure, just as we do, at Glia, we only serve financial institutions. So this is all we did. And at Fin, this was all we did at Fin as well. So we need to make sure that, data is safe. It's all in a secure platform. It's encrypted when it should be encrypted. And that we're not, if we're using a large language model, we're doing it in a way that maintains the same safety standards that we use for the rest of the Glia platform. So this, I think, is an absolute must for anybody who's using a large language model. And it's something for sure financial institutions should be watching out for. But we think responsible AI also means a couple other things. And one is turnkey and easy to use. AI products have historically been, and certainly since the last time we spoke, a lot of AI products can be more sort of tools that you can use to build an AI product, but it's not the actual AI product itself. And so this can mean that it can be really complex to adopt and use and needs a lot of professional services. And we think that responsible AI is building more of a turnkey product. So something that's baked into your use case, baked into a channel, like the transfer summary I mentioned or interaction wrap-up. I mean, this just sort of happens in the background automatically for an agent. So it's not complex to adopt. And the last is proven and delivers real value. So, there's no shortage of, everyone's sort of slapping AI into their products like a bumper sticker these days. There's no shortage of novelty AI out there and hype. And we need to make sure as we roll out AI products and as financial institutions adopt them, that they are solving a real problem and that they really work, so that we don't get sort of burned on the use case. And I think we saw that a little bit in the last wave of chatbot adoption.
And I'm thinking also in terms of kind of people who don't want to really get involved on the bleeding edge. You mentioned that Glia and Fin, back in before you were when you were separate companies, are purely dedicated to financial institutions. I think you mentioned something earlier about 130 clients. So is that 130 separate FIs, banks and credit unions, or does that include other service providers? I'm just trying to get a sense of how many folks have this in market today.
Yeah, that's so using our Glia virtual assistant, we have north of 130 financial institution customers using that today. So we would be, the GVA would, Glia virtual assistant would be by far the most widely adopted AI assistant in banking. And outside of, my joke is, outside of making my mum proud, why is that beneficial for our financial institution customers? It benefits all of our customers in that we aggregate the learning across all of those financial institutions. So all of that data sort of goes into one banking specific language model that we train. And so as we get more customers and more data in that model, the model gets better and everybody benefits from that.
That was one of the questions I had. So, and from a large language model standpoint, it's not that you have 130 individual siloed models, but obviously that there's a process to maintain any confidentiality of personal information. I'm guessing any other kind of competitive advantage that one, proprietary information that one wouldn't want to share with another. That's kind of all baked into the system.
Yeah, that's right. So once we strip the data of any PII or other data that should remain private, we can put that data into our industry model, our banking industry model, and then we train one AI model that all of our customers use. And the reason we can do this in banking is that fundamentally, what we do for the questions and what member at one credit union does is very similar to the questions a member might ask or do at a different credit union or bank. And so we can build one model that understands. Today our prepackaged banking model comes with over 900. It understands and handles over 900 banking tasks out of the box. And so if you're the 131st financial institution who uses a GVA, you get that model on day one.
And the odds that you have another answer that or another question that comes in, and again, you're not trying to. If someone has some totally wacky question, you don't want to have the model freelancing on that answer until somebody's vetted it.
Yeah, that's right. Our models understand over 90% of questions out of the box. And so if you have sort of and that's the core value you're getting. And so if you have a sort of long tail question and you want to add it, that might be a good thing to do, but you're probably not going to increase our overall model understanding much beyond 90%. So when we add new things to our model, it increases, which we're doing all the time, of course, still. But we increase our understanding by 0.01%, and just gives you an indication of how far into the long tail we are.
And it's probably more refining the answers on those existing 900 questions, not, as you say, adding the 901st, 902nd. Or is it a little both?
Yeah, 100%. That's what it is. And so if you're a GVA customer, you don't need to focus on the AI understanding, but what you do need to focus on is making sure that the AI's answers or responses are giving your brand personality, the right content, product information. And so that's where you should focus your time and effort as a financial institution to personalize the GVA for yourselves. It's very much focused on the response side, not the AI understanding side.
So what happens with, I guess, the roughly 10% of responses that the model doesn't immediately recognize? Do those get immediately kind of routed to a live representative, or what happens then?
Yeah, well, we have we sort of have an approach to troubleshoot first as an AI assistant. So we can have, if we didn't get it a perfect guess, we can have a couple of tries at it. And often what we'll do there is we'll give you a couple of options, or we can just send you straight on to a human. And so that's the big benefit of look, AI isn't perfect. We get it wrong all the time, 1 in 10 times. We're not understanding. So it's not perfect. It will never be perfect. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to, mostly for the simple queries, we can help people get an answer instantly, 24/7. It's really easy to use. It's conversational. So it does a great job. But if you should go to a human agent, we can also get you to a human agent right away. And so that's the benefit of being part of Glia. And ultimately, that's why we did the deal with Glia. Mm-hmm. It's a recognition that AI is not the only solution. And I think if we've all had a chat with a chatbot and we couldn't get to a human and it was super frustrating and annoying. And so that's 100% not our goal with our AI, with our Glia virtual assistant. We want to be working hand in hand seamlessly with human agents.
And guess what? Those human agents aren't 100% perfect either. So got to keep that in mind too.
Well, also they don't. I mean, the big challenge is they just, they don't scale infinitely,
and they turn over quickly too, and you got to train them again.
Yeah, and there will always be more customers looking to get in touch with a financial institution than there will be support agents. So the demand side of the equation, there'll always be an imbalance. And so chatbots and virtual assistants can help us get things done whenever we want, and they scale infinitely. So that's one of the big benefits.
I'm curious. I'm guessing maybe this answer's changed a little bit over time as the markets evolve, but my guess would be that legal and compliance would be kind of the areas of the financial institution that probably have the greatest level of, I don't want to say skepticism, but they might put up the strongest kind of barriers to make sure they can be convinced before you roll this out. Is that still where you find your greatest, hurdles you've got to overcome, or is that where do you find the biggest place where you've got to do the convincing?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the GVA, certainly when we start, our customer-facing AI assistant, when we started out on our journey as Fin, that was a big area of focus, and we had to convince those teams. Today, we have a very mature product, very widely adopted, very well understood, and so we're often not sort of running into barriers there anymore. I would say it's more about finding the right channel to be in and then prioritizing it versus other things going on in the financial institution. But we can deliver, you know, right, when we look at the opportunity for AI assistants today, if you don't have a customer facing AI assistant, I mean, it's a very well proven product. It delivers a lot of value for a lot of customers. It is something that, most financial institutions should have. And they should have it in their phone channel, not just in their digital channel. So
And
I
at
think
this
that,
and at this point, though, even the legal compliance people, they're close enough to this that they kind of know, they got to get comfortable, but they're not just kind of setting
yeah,
up the real
there
deal.
are products out there like ours that will tick all the boxes and they will do a very good job in production. And so, it's 100% something that people should be looking at. I think the newer areas, how can we use AI to sort of as a co-pilot or an assistant for agents? That's a newer area. Lots of opportunity for generative AI there, and I shared a couple of use cases. That's probably an area where compliance is still sort of wrapping their heads around it to make sure that it's safe, that data is not being shared back with those large language models if they're being used.
Aha, yeah.
So that for those sorts of use cases, we are still, I think, very naturally we're seeing compliance take an interest. Again, we welcome that. That is definitely something that they should be doing. We welcome that, and if they're looking at vendors, they should make sure that they're safe, secure. They're built in a way that will match the standards that FIs need to maintain.
It may be a good point to end on. I mean, this is really interesting stuff. I saw another reference in your deck about rogue data, that you really make a good, strong effort of not allowing any rogue data into the mix. And maybe I think rogue responses, maybe the better way of talking about that. How do you actually make sure that doesn't seep into the equation?
Yeah, I think we've all used ChatGPT and had it asked a question and had it had it give us a completely incorrect answer, but very confidently. And that's very risky for financial institutions. So we need to make sure that the responses, the answers, the content coming back from our AI assistants to customers, that we can trust that. And I will say, like, we have seen examples in the market from financial institutions deploying chatbots that are, using generative AI. And we've played around with them and been able to. There was one example where we were able to get one of those chatbots to offer us a $1 million mortgage at 0% interest. And
Oh, wow.
we're just playing around with it to have fun and sort of test it out. But there's also more nefarious things that you can get it to say. So I would tread very, very carefully with what you put in front of your customers, and be very responsible about how you do it, because that trust is the foundation on which all financial institutions are built on, and we don't want to erode it.
Give Air Canada a call on that one. I think they could probably provide a little bit of the school of hard knocks on that one. Wow, that's interesting. And
I
I
think
guess
we'll see more of those examples come out over time. We're still sort of scratching the surface, but as these products will become more widely adopted, and I think we'll see a few sort of missteps. So we encourage everyone to be excited about the future. Since we last spoke, Glenn, the technology is just way better, light years ahead of where it was in 2017. I mean, the opportunity is enormous, but let's go forth and in a responsible way.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to go back to 2017. You can go back to 2022 and see a massive difference. Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. I really, and I guess, to your point too, I'm not trying to answer every question is one of the keys. If you're, I don't want to say satisfied with 90%, but don't try to push the envelope if you don't have an answer. Don't strain to, run the risk of a higher probability of a wrong answer by trying to push it before, like you say, refine the answers you can handle more than trying to add to the universe. Is that a fair way?
Yeah, I think it's, with how we build these systems, it will always be an interplay of humans and, when it comes to customer service and interactions and relationship building with customers, for financial institutions, it will always be an interplay between AI and humans. And, that will evolve over time, how that interplay happens and the proportions, etc. But, that's why I think Glia is in such a great position, because we can blend the human and the AI and just deliver the best experience depending on the use case.
So if people want to find out more, best way is the Glia website?
Yeah, go to the Glia website. You can check out Cortex, which is our a new AI layer at Glia, and learn a little bit more about our customer-facing AI, and then agent-facing and manager-facing AI as well. And if you're interested and you want to learn more, please reach out and we can share a demo. I mean, I like I said, I think it's an area to be very, very excited about. It will be. I look forward to catching up with 2017 in another 5 years. I think frontline teams at financial institutions will look different. We'll be doing different jobs. So this is a big technology platform shift. It's very exciting. But yeah, let's make sure we're responsible in the way we approach it.
And let's not wait another 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Jake Tyler, AI market lead for Glia. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So we got a link in the show notes to a website that goes directly to some of the things that Jake was speaking about, and you can obviously navigate backwards to the rest of the Glia site, but the whole notion of the Cortex offering and ethical and responsible AI by way of Glia. So thanks to Jake for taking the time to talk about that. Great stuff. We're running pretty long today, so I'm just going to kind of wrap things up quickly here. You can always find out more about the Best Innovation Group at our website, big-fintech.com. My name again is Glenn Sarvati. You can find me on LinkedIn or through my own firm, 154 Advisors. 154 Advisors is my handle on LinkedIn as well as on X, and Blue Sky for that matter. You'll find more episodes of the Big Cast again at the website, big-fintech.com, under the Media tab. If you happen to be listening via Spotify or Apple Music, or even if you're not, check it out there. You can search, and we've got our past episodes there. A rich archive of past conversations, including the one we just had last week with John Best, talking about, again, AI and Apple Intelligence and how it's being rolled into the Apple product suite. More of that to come, as well as plenty of other topics in the near future. We got new content here every Tuesday. As always, we'd love to hear from you if you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation. Always a great opportunity to understand what's going on in the marketplace and continuing the dialogue. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Check back each week for the latest from the Big Cast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big Fintech. Email info@big-fintech.com. Or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.